Let's go.
Oh my God.
nice.
Let's go.
I wanted to start this conversation by asking you both who your favorite Marvel character is and why. I'll tell you mine afterwards, but maybe you can already guess.
Sam Vereen.
Yeah. Viewers, listeners, if you haven't already guessed, we're having a Marvel episode this week on the show, which allowed me to buy a mask and dress up as my favorite Marvel character, Wolverine. I want to talk about Marvel this week because a little movie named Thunderbolts hits theaters this weekend, and a lot of folks are saying that it needs to reboot Marvel in the MCU because that universe is maybe in trouble. I wanted to ask two smart journalists that question and many more. Welcome. Tell folks who you are while I take this off.
I am Kyle Buchanan from the New York Times. I have an awards column in the paper called The Projectionist, but maybe it would be my superhero name too, if that's where we're going with things.
What would?
The Projectionist. That'd
What's
be my
that
alias.
superpower?
Oscar forecasting. I'm not sure that it would beat Doctor Doom in a fight, but one never knows.
Okay.
You know, like maybe he's really into the Best Actress race.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell folks who you are.
I'm Tracy Brown. I'm an entertainment reporter at the LA Times. I cover TV, film, pop culture in general. Do we all have superpowers? My superpower is being able to sleep at night, even though I get in arguments about Star Wars with people.
Not Star Wars. That's another episode. What is my superpower? One day, fixing Wolverine.
And
One
I
day.
believe in you.
You believe in me. Good,
Yeah.
good. So I guess to start this Marvel conversation, as journalists who cover movies and cover Marvel, do you get tired of the wither Marvel questions? Is Marvel in trouble? What's up with the MCU questions?
I feel like 'twas ever thus. Even when Marvel was becoming a really big thing, there was always the expectation that it would burn out at some point. And there have been some bad Marvel movies in the past, you know? Like, not everything after that initial salvo of Iron Man, Thor, Captain America worked well. In fact, Iron Man 2, the second Thor movie, those weren't stellar releases either. But they always do manage to bounce back, even after a prolonged period of Marvel's in a tailspin. They had one of their biggest hits ever last year with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Then they had that new Captain America, Brave New World.
They had that. It wasn't one of their biggest hits ever.
It was bad.
So that again puts us in a little bit of a fallow period. I think even Marvel would acknowledge it seems like they're trying to find their next best path forward. And when they were first kind of coming onto the scene and becoming a dominant phenomenon, it did feel that even though you had all of these different properties, it was all moving in a linear direction. And I think that in recent years, whether it's just fatigue, creative burnout, or maybe too many properties with all those Disney Plus series, it doesn't feel as dominant. There isn't an expectation that you've watched every Marvel property anymore.
Because who can do it?
And once you start tapping out of one or two Marvel series and Marvel movies, it's going to take something big to lure you back.
Okay. Tracy, same question to you. Do you get tired of this question?
In a way, because they always ask that, right? In the beginning, Marvel in the beginning had to earn its MCU grander, but there was always doubters from the beginning. So every little, like Kyle mentioned, a lot of movies were not that good. People think about Endgame and Infinity War, and it's this bar, but they forget there's 20 years of kind of stumbling and figuring out along the way.
What year was Iron Man, the first one?
Was that
2008?
2008?
Yeah, approaching 20 years. That's wild. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So people remember the height of Endgame and Infinity War, and they think everything after that should match it, but it's kind of impossible. One, because of the whole that building blocks. It took building blocks to get there, but also how many things are the culture is different now. We don't all go all in on anything. How many of us watch or talk about the same TV or movie outside of Marvel? So Marvel having to become dominant, right? People expecting Marvel to be dominant like that in a time where culture is so spread out. It's just something it's hard.
Yeah. So I wanted to have this conversation after watching a movie trailer in the movies. I forget which movie I was watching, but before that, the trailer for the latest Captain America movie, Brave New World, came on the screen. And I love Anthony Mackie. I like his film work. I thought he was great in his Black Mirror episode, but that trailer started, and before I knew it, I was laughing. It felt like farce. It felt absurd, bad, camp in all the wrong ways. And I wasn't wrong. This film came out to really bad reviews and it underperformed at the box office. And after that film, I think I and a lot of other folks were asking the question, is Marvel washed? Are they washed? The question's being asked again as we go into Thunderbolts weekend. But to start, what rating would you give the MCU right now? Grade, status of health, some kind of report card on the health of Marvel.
Well, first of all, Sam, a little birdie told me that you saw that Captain America trailer before The Brutalist, which I can only imagine the cognitive dissonance of
Oh my God,
that
because
experience.
Tyler was there with me. My colleague Tyler was there with me, and he saw me go from the worst trailer of all time to one of the most self-indulgent films of all time. I had a day. Chinese theater, you owe me money.
But very different
Yes.
wavelengths. And I think to watch something like that where, I mean, at least you can say, well, The Brutalist is aspiring to something massive. Was Captain America Brave New World? I think to a certain extent, it felt like they were just trying to tread water. And so that's
That's
why
the
I
thing.
would say right now, I feel like the MCU is grade B.
Grade B, okay.
Grade B because they're still going to make more money than almost anything that can be out there.
Uh-huh.
There is still, the imprimatur of Marvel counts for more than just about any name brand you've got that can entice people into a movie theater. But it doesn't feel like that dominant monoculture anymore. It doesn't feel like you have to see every Marvel movie. And
Doesn't
that's
feel
gonna
like
be
I
an
want
issue.
to see every Marvel
Well,
movie.
that's part of it, but I think that sometimes people would still see it out of obligation. And for
and
the
that's
most part,
diminishing.
for a little while, there was an almost Pixar level roster of hits, and they were pretty good tentpole movies. There was the occasional clunker,
Yeah.
and now there's maybe a bigger clunker ratio
Okay.
than people are used to.
Okay. So
You're
one, you give it a B.
Yes.
Two, that was the most casual use of the word imprimatur. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Kudos on that. What's your grade?
I was gonna say,
health
you're much
score?
nicer than I am. Maybe it's my Asian American mom, but the MCU is right.
for it.
I'm saying B minus.
Oh, that's not it.
Well,
What
it's
would your
like-
Asian
it's
American
like
mom
not-
say? What would your
Your
Asian
mom would
American
be
mom
harsh.
say?
Well, I mean, anything lower than an A minus is failing, right?
Wow.
But same. It's the first weekend is always there for I think even the worst MCU entries. That first weekend, it's still the top box office getter. People are still paying attention to it. Nobody likes feeling like they have to do homework before they go watch a movie, but
Yeah.
a lot of people like feeling rewarded if they did do homework. So
Okay.
so they're still, they're still going. They're like, I put all this time into it, I might as well go.
All right.
But also, by the same token, I mean, I think you're right that people felt rewarded, certainly when they were watching something like Infinity War or Avengers Endgame, because they saw all those movies.
Can I tell you my
To now-
truth?
Oh, go ahead.
I fell asleep in Endgame.
Did you?
I fell asleep in Endgame because they just kept bringing them out like a family reunion, and I'm like, let me guess, the good guys are gonna win. Let me take a nap.
Sure.
Let me take a nap.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
An excellent prediction. But yeah, so I do think that right now there's this expectation of well, I didn't see the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so this Wyatt Russell character in Thunderbolts, who even is he? There's a character from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Are people reaching back that far?
The fact
So
that they
there's
keep
an
trying to make that
expectation.
happen.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you think about
the
it-
homework feels a lot more like homework
Yeah.
now.
But even Captain America, Brave New World, that homework was Hulk movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess for some, the people who saw that, they'll feel great about it. But what you mentioned, Falcon and the Winter Soldier and stuff like that, I actually think Marvel TV is doing okay.
But then there's so much more stuff to
there
watch.
is so much more stuff, but a lot of the things I have enjoyed in the past 5 years, post Endgame, more of it has been on television than
Okay.
in the box office.
Yes. Save that thought because I want to
yeah,
get there because
okay.
that is a big chapter in how MCU evolved. But let's take it to this weekend. Folks are going to hear this episode this weekend, and the big movie this weekend, at least Marvel hopes so, is Thunderbolts. It's kind of being positioned as a reset of sorts, a different kind of darker, edgier Marvel film. And I went in expecting a reset from what I've been watching of Marvel. I want us to give away our reviews without giving away spoilers. I gotta say, even though I give Marvel right now maybe a C, I give Thunderbolts a B or a B plus. It didn't disappoint me. I was able to follow the story, not knowing too much MCU lore, and it looked good. It looked real slick, and I didn't see any bad CGI, which has plagued these Marvel films for years. But I'm wondering, y'all, Thunderbolts, quick review.
I think there is a great movie in Thunderbolts that comes to the fore a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hemmed in by the demands for it to be a certain type of Marvel movie that sort of compromises it and brings it down to good a lot of the time.
I did feel like a lot of the time watching the movie, there were several minutes where I said to myself, I'd be laughing here if I knew the backstory, but I don't.
Yeah.
And I had to wait to get to the parts that could be universally understood by everyone there.
There is a great stripped down movie about Florence Pugh's character, who is the main character.
I'd argue Julia Louis-Dreyfus captured my heart in this film.
Well, that's fair. But what I think, Florence Pugh is the protagonist, and she's terrific in it. The problem is there are so many other characters on her team that honestly the movie is less invested in. Some of the actors feel less invested in. And if they just stripped it down to make it more about Florence, I think it would be great.
Okay.
And you realize as the movie starts to put its pieces into play that it has to be about a team because it has to set up X
all
and
these
Y later
characters,
on.
all this is okay.
And that's very Marvel, and that's the problem a lot of the time.
Tracy.
I'm with you. I would say it's a solid B plus at least.
Okay.
If you, depending on what you saw before, you might give it an A minus.
I mean, had I walked into that movie just seeing Captain America: Brave New World, I would have given Thunderbolts a Peabody.
Yeah, but it has all the things you want from a entertaining just blockbuster, right? It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's relatable stakes.
Mm-hmm.
There's more to it than the comic bookiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about it kind of goes back to relatable state. So there's a story at play that's not just we need to move this next piece of the MCU from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening. Florence Pugh's a star, so that definitely helps.
This is the thing, though. They're all stars. I was realizing it's a stacked cast. It's a really stacked cast. They've got some good people in this movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your grade for it?
I'll give it an A minus.
You'll give it an A minus.
Right? Like it exceeded my expectations, even with my I'll watch anything with Florence Pugh in it mindset.
Yeah.
A minus.
Okay. So then, is this movie going to change the narrative around Marvel?
No, I don't think so. I think it will do all right. I think a lot of the narrative around Marvel has to do with box office. And honestly, it all feels like a holding period for the next Avengers movie, which comes out next year. That is a real full stop. We got to bring Robert Downey Jr. back, like all hands on deck situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a movie like that, if it feels like a creative reset, if it feels like it's propelling the MCU into an exciting new direction, that could literally be a reboot of this whole vibe. But I think for Thunderbolts, for everything that it does do well, it does still it's caught up in this holding pattern.
Yeah. Same question to you, Tracy. Will this reset Marvel's narrative?
I think a little. Right? This is a movie that people who, if you already know you like Marvel movies, you're gonna really like this Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you already didn't like Marvel movie, there's nothing in it that's gonna change your mind that you suddenly like Marvel movies. But I do think it captures a lot of things that people have been missing in the MCU movies, which is fun. We like team ups. We like origin stories about team up. It's easier to come into and cheer for them, just because it's this new. We love found families and stuff like that. There's things that we're missing that we got to see in the original Avengers movie or the first Guardians. The first team up movie is always exciting.
Yeah.
So I think, and especially after the Brave New World narrative, it'll be a bump up. How much higher it'll go is a different question, but it'll definitely be oh hey, maybe it hasn't lost all its mojo. Yeah.
Kumail Nanjiani told me something once, and this was before he got cast in a Marvel movie.
Which one was he in?
He was in Eternals.
Which
See,
one
the
was
fact
that?
that you don't know is indicative of something.
What did he play in that one?
His character was named Kingo.
Kingo.
I can't believe I remember that.
What did that one do?
They're basically space gods.
Yes, he was like a Bollywood star, and he was
Yeah.
a space god.
Should I watch this
and
movie?
I think Tracy's gonna be kinder to it than I will be.
It depends on. It is
Be
the,
honest.
Oh, it's a fun. Okay, if you feel like you need, it's for
Tracy's
completists,
leading with ambivalence.
right? It's for completists, but it's also like, what can Chloe Zhao do with a Marvel movie? Like, if that's something that
Oh, this
interests
is the
you.
movie that Chloe Zhao did after winning the Oscar for Best
Yeah,
Picture.
Right,
so if you're
yes.
like, what if that's the pitch for me. Is like,
okay.
what can Chloe Zhao do with a
And the
Marvel
answer
movie?
to that is still the question. What can Chloe Zhao do with a Marvel movie? I'm
Wide
not sure.
shots.
But
I
anyway,
remember, what was the Oscar one? A lot of wide shots in the Midwest.
this is all to say that when I talked to Kumail, it was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and big screen comedies were on the wane. And he had a theory about that, and he said, the normal moviegoer goes to see 2 or 3 movies in the theater every year
Which
now.
breaks my heart.
I know, mine too, because I'm an inveterate moviegoer. And he said...
Inveterate. You and these big words.
I'll try
Continue.
to...
No, I love
I'll try
it.
to use the
Continue.
2 cent word.
Continue.
But he said, and he thinks that most moviegoers now, whether consciously or subconsciously, we're saving those 2 or 3 slots for Marvel movies. Because 2 or 3 Marvel movies will come out per year. Now, we still have 2 or 3 per year, but I don't know if people are saving those slots for them anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Marvel will truly be back, if it ever will be, to that same degree until it feels like those 2 or 3 are saved for the Marvel movies.
That is interesting. I like this. I want to pivot and talk about how Marvel got to the place it's in now. I don't think we need to recap the problems Marvel is having. They're pretty obvious. A lot of movies over close to 2 decades. It's hard to keep attention. And you have a lot of plot lines that continue to need to connect, which makes it hard to make movies that are just compelling on their own because they must be tied into this spider web of every other Marvel thing. But I want to dig into one thing that people say was the start of Marvel's current problems. And that was a choice during the pandemic by Disney Plus and Marvel to make Marvel TV shows for folks to watch at home when they couldn't go to the movies. Folks who I trust, members of this team, say that was a moment things shifted because all of a sudden there was just too much content to keep up with. Was that a moment of shift for the MCU? COVID Marvel TV shows?
I mean, I absolutely believe it was. I do think one of the best things that Marvel's ever done, and I bet Tracy's going to agree, is WandaVision.
Yeah.
And it feels like that was one of the last times that there was that feeling of everybody is watching this Marvel thing and wants to talk about it. But then after WandaVision, almost every month there would be a new Marvel series.
month?
Well, just about. I think there was a time when there would maybe be 2 weeks in between a Marvel property on Disney Plus. And that market got so wildly oversaturated so fast with things that were not up to that same creative caliber, and people started to tap out. And it is really hard once you've had this thing where it's like, I am watching every Marvel property. You start tapping out, it's like losing your Duolingo streak. You're like, you know what? The spell's broken.
My
I don't
Duolingo bird
necessarily
is
have to go back
dead.
to that.
My Duolingo bird is dead.
I don't think it's just it was just their pivot
Okay.
to television.
Okay, say more.
Part of it is because it was the pandemic, there were no theaters, so there was no way to differentiate the different ways you should enjoy. Say, Black Widow was the first one where they're like, we'll just do a day and date on digital because we can't. There's
Who
no
was in
theaters.
Black Widow?
Scarlett Johansson. That's where Florence Pugh's character was introduced.
Okay. Now, why am
Are
I
you
getting
sure
this?
you're worthy of wearing the Wolverine cowl, Sam? I'm skeptical.
Listen, I'm worthy of wearing the Wolverine mask because every Saturday in my youth, my ass was on that couch watching the original X-Men cartoon. The OG. The OG.
Were you an X-Men
right.
97 fan?
Didn't watch it.
Oh my
I
God.
hear it's great.
Well, look, I mean, like, I think Sam is our case study here. Like,
Yeah.
we're flipping the tables on you. Why
Do
did
it.
you start tapping out of Marvel?
I'm going to tell you why I started tapping out of Marvel, and hold your thought because I want to get back to it. It is the same reason that I chose to not buy tickets to Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour and said, if the universe gives me a ticket, I'll go, but I'm not paying for it. Because I have a finite... how do I say this? I have a finite amount of resources, whether it's money to go to concerts or time to watch TV and movies. And what I chose to do this year was to use my Beyonce concert money to see 5 to 10 independent artists who need the support more, and I get more concerts out of it. It's the same thing with Marvel. I love Kathryn Hahn. WandaVision is brilliant. I like the Iron Man stuff. I like a lot of these characters, but I want to be a consumer of all the culture. And if I spend all of my time in Marvel, I can't get anything else at this point because there's too much to keep up with. There's too much.
Real.
So that said, Wolverine, I love you. Beyonce, I love you. But my love must be shared. My love must be shared.
But there are people like Tracy you're really enamored of most of the Marvel series, right?
Yeah, I like most of the series. I think for me, a lot of the issues of the MCU is very parallel to superhero comic books, like Marvel comic books, where there's so much out there. It's to a point now where it's not new reader, new viewer friendly all the time. Like there's access points. So comic books, for example, their solution was, we'll double down. We'll have way more, we'll reward they're trying to reward the already dedicated readers, right? They're like, well, more crossovers, all this stuff. And then at some point they're like, oh, we need to have like new characters and reboots and stuff like that to get new people in. And the MCU hasn't figured that out yet. They're also doubling down on like, we're going to go after the people that already like us. But that's not enough. As we've
It's
like,
not enough.
If there's only, like Kyle mentioned, if most people are only going to watch 2 or 3 movies in the theater a year, only a fraction of those are Marvel lovers and Marvel viewers.
And it makes me think of these moments watching Thunderbolts this week at a screening. There were these moments in Thunderbolts where I was like, this is going over my head. I think it's tied to some previous plot. I don't get it. But then you'd hear only men laughing uproariously. Because they got some inside joke that you could only know if you'd watched everything. And yeah, this is the central question. Is like Marvel going to keep making stuff that makes those dudes the happiest, make stuff that is for everyone else? Or is there a balance that they can achieve that works for everyone? Increasingly, I don't think that's possible. Because also what we've seen happen, and I talk about monoculture all the time, like the monoculture is broken. We're no longer broadcasting, we're narrowcasting. But the folks who like the narrowcasting, they're such purists and loyalists, they don't want you to screw around with their very specific content. Is Marvel trying to go broad again, going to piss off their most loyal followers?
I think you'll always have your most loyal followers. It's a mistake to over-listen to that demographic that you've got captured completely. And
Because where else are they going to go?
Yeah.
DC?
Well, I mean...
That's a whole different conversation.
I do think that Marvel did have that formula that you described, Sam, down to a pretty good science for a long time. The problem now is it's so top-heavy. There's so much history, so much lore, so many characters. I mean, just recently, they did sort of a casting announcement for Avengers Doomsday, the film that's out next year, and they just basically went down multiple rows of a very long row of casting chairs to announce all the people in this movie.
It was like hours of video where
Yes.
they would
Really?
just focus on a chair, and like
Here's
15
Chris
minutes
Hemsworth.
later they would move to the next chair.
Here's Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
That
But
kind of thing.
I will say this is where I will defend Marvel television.
Okay.
A lot of Marvel television is actually accessible to newer
Well,
audiences,
because you
right?
can watch WandaVision on its own.
Yeah. WandaVision appeals to people who love TV, not just people who
You can
appeal
watch
to
Agatha
Marvel.
all along on its own.
Yeah, Agatha all along.
What I'm
also
saying here is
great.
you can always watch Kathryn Hahn.
Yes.
You can always watch Kathryn
but like
Hahn.
Agatha's actually a great example. You mentioned like the men laughing at Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Agatha all along is the other demographic, right? It's
Say more.
It's right. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's women. It's queer
queer
audience.
women witches.
It's queer women witches, right? It was something that I don't, not that I think people make stuff with the audience in mind, but the audience in mind.
They do.
Right? This was not for your typical comic book nerd.
Yeah.
And I think I saw a lot of conversation outside of the normal channels, the normal fans who really enjoyed it. And like that's what TV lets them tap into, as long as they, because I think, I don't want to say like Marvel TV costs less than Marvel movies, because that's not true.
It's all expensive, right?
But that's where you can probably be a bit more risky. Like you can try other stuff and try to get some of the new people interested in. Now, the question is like, there's nowhere for people who loved Agatha all along to go next.
Well, so that's a major thing because
They're not doing anything else after that, right?
No, I agree with you, Tracy, and I also don't think that they would make that show anymore.
Why not?
I think that making that show was at a certain time where they were coming off of a big hit show with WandaVision, and they were flooding the zone, and it was like, let's make a smaller or a lower cost version of this with a breakout character for like the girls, gays, and theys. And I don't think that that's their mandate anymore. I think they're making fewer shows, and they want them to all be like 4-quadrant hits.
Yeah. Would Marvel ever make a movie on the big screen for the girls, gays, and days?
They sort of tried the Marvels. That's definitely
Which one was that?
The Marvels. The Marvels is it was Brie Larson. What was it?
Tiana Paris.
And Iman Vellani.
Black woman director,
Yeah,
right?
Black
Yes.
woman, yeah, Nia DaCosta's movie. Like,
It was also gay?
Well, not really.
They didn't tell me that.
No, there's like a
I'd have been
tease.
there.
There's like a tease. It's not. It's
I couldn't
not
believe that.
any more
I
gay
can't do-
than
I
most
can't do
MCU stuff.
gay
There's
tease
no,
anymore.
Yeah,
Undergrad
No.
is
It's
over.
definitely there's a nod for people who were like deep in the fandom of some of like weird. I don't want to say weird, but non-canon pairings. They're
Okay.
like little winks for you.
All right.
But it was 3 women leading this movie that flopped hard.
I remember
Yeah.
it flopping
And I
hard.
do think that you know, in the Disney corporate offices, especially in the climate that we're in now,
They're not trying to be too progressive these days.
there is a rush to be the opposite of that. And I think
Yes.
that you've certainly had Marvel movies that show that, like, you know, feeling representation on the superheroic scale can be lucrative, like Black Panther and the original Captain Marvel prove that amply, I feel. But I do think that there is a conservative retrenching in almost every
Yes.
arena of entertainment. Certainly when movies cost this much and their executives have to kowtow to a president that would deem most of these movies to be DEI efforts, I think we're going to see a chill when it comes to
Yeah.
Okay.
properties
But
like this.
I have to say, like, The Marvels was a perfectly fine, good movie. It was entertaining.
Actually, you wrote us before this and said
Yeah.
that was one of your
It was one of
hottest
my
pop
favorites.
culture hot takes.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies since Endgame. There was just enough Easter eggs for people that were watching TV payoffs, but it was a movie that knew to have fun, and it centered women and women of color and like young women, and kind of bonds of friendship and team making in a way that you don't always get in like Quantumania. It's like you don't know what's happening.
Which one is that?
That's the Ant-Man movie where
Let's
yeah.
don't.
third
let's-
Ant-Man.
We're not saying Ant-Man anymore in this
All right, we
room.
won't say
That just
Ant-Man
feels like
anymore.
bad
But I
juju.
don't know. It was a movie where you went in, you had fun. There was a dance number. There were cats.
There's a dance number?
Yeah, there's a dance number. There's like cats doing crazy things. There's a fight sequence where like set to like Missy Elliott. Like it's all great
Why did no one tell me about this?
because
Because
no one
nobody
talked
saw
about
it.
Nobody saw it because they came out during the strikes. Like they couldn't advertise it. It was a bad time. I don't think any movie would have done well in the circumstances that this was released in. just
Disney did
time-wise.
not believe in this movie, so they were happy to release it during the strikes. They barely wanted to release it at all.
Huh. But I'm going to watch it now.
I
You
think it's
convinced me.
perfectly
You
It's a
convinced
perfectly
me.
fine, fun. It's like an ice cream movie. You go, you're gonna like it.
Down for it.
There may not be calories that are like healthy for you, but it's still like you come out and you're like, that was fun.
Okay, I love it. So we've talked about one of the big problems for Marvel, and that was the expansion into TV during pandemic. But like, I want to ask you before we pivot: would Marvel have a different report card if some of their film releases weren't all just big blockbusters, but like some weird ones, some art house ones, some indie ones, some that were released at different times of the year? Like everything they've made has been so high stakes for them. It's just hard to keep that up. I think of my favorite Marvel-ish movie, and it's not quite MCU, but it's that Wolverine kind of spinoff, Logan. That's a Western, not in the typical Marvel fashion, and it wasn't expected to perform as wildly as a typical Marvel film. And everyone loved that movie, and it did pretty well. And I think Marvel put itself in a box because for 20 years now, they've said, we must have a big blockbuster every year. That's just hard. Is there a future where Marvel just makes different types of films that fit into the film ecosystem in different ways?
If they're willing to trust directors. Logan was
LOL.
Logan was an auteur project made by James Mangold, and because it wasn't a big deal, and because the X-Men franchise at that point was not held by
Yeah.
the MCU, overseen by Kevin Feige, who runs Marvel Studios, Fox just kind of let James Mangold and Hugh Jackman do what they
And
wanted.
it's so good. It's not just a great action hero movie. It's also a commentary on America's immigration system. This movie is so good.
The auteur right now in the MCU, has and always will be, is Kevin Feige. And occasionally you do have a great director who works in that and can make that stuff work. But I would argue even a Ryan Coogler, when you watch Sinners, you're like, this is the full-blown Ryan Coogler experience, not Black Panther Wakanda Forever. He brings elements of it, but like Sinners is a full meal, front to back, and like absolutely everything about it is complete. And
Yes.
it's so satisfying to watch
Yes.
an incredible visionary filmmaker like Ryan Coogler make a complete feeling movie that pleases a crowd like this.
And that is a new idea.
Yeah.
That is not existing IP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Your
and I
thoughts
think,
on this?
and I do think that's the issue with Marvel is that they've become. I don't like saying too big to fail.
They are too big to
but
fail.
they're too big to fail,
Yeah.
so they can't trust their filmmakers. They'll get the Ryan Coogler. They got Chloe Zhao. Like, go let her be Chloe Zhao. It
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
Why don't you let her do it, right? Even Ida Costa, her other stuff was.
Mm-hmm.
She has a point of view. Like they don't. The point of the filmmaker's point of view is not. I don't say. I don't. What's the word I'm looking for? But it you can tell it is muted because it needs to serve the I don't want to say assembly line, but more
it's fair to say.
filmmaking, right? Filmmaking by committee. Like people, it's so big that they can't take the risk of letting a filmmaker be weird. But the weird stuff is what we want.
That part. I'm so glad y'all brought up Coogler and Sinners, because I think also an existential question for the future of Marvel is an existential question for Hollywood about IP. The Marvel era really cemented the era of quote unquote existing IP in Hollywood. What is a plot line or character or story that exists already and has fans, and how can we put that on a screen and get folks to watch it? And Hollywood has become IP-ified in large part due to Marvel and its success. And we even see the long tail of that Marvel IP shadow in movies like Barbie, which are just a different kind of IP that works, right? And so much of what Sinners represents is a rejection of that. It is a brand new story that no one's seen before. This movie has done so well. It only dropped its box office haul by like 6% from weekend 1 to weekend 2. Is the real test for the future of Marvel a question of whether viewers are fatigued by existing IP and want new stuff like Sinners? Is that the real question for Marvel?
I mean, I would love if I felt that Sinners was a threat to anything. I mean, I would love if Hollywood...
You don't think it's a threat?
I would love if Hollywood would learn the right lessons from a big success, and they never do.
What is the right lesson from Sinners?
Do I feel... let's
People
take,
want vampires again.
Let's take it back 2
That's what
years.
they're gonna take away
Let's
with
take it back 2 years. Do you feel that the Hollywood landscape is different because of the mega success of Barbie?
No.
I can't give you a
This is
single
what's
example.
wild.
So
The lesson from
I'd
Barbie,
love to think, but...
The lesson from Barbie should have been let women make more movies that center women, but the lesson Hollywood executives took was more toy movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, and it's a similar thing that you can also kind of see with Sinners, which is let an auteur make a movie like that, and it's going to be fascinating.
And let a movie be as black as it wants to be.
Yeah. Now, Warner Brothers, to be fair, is investing a lot of money in auteurs this year. We have a big budget Paul Thomas Anderson movie like on the way.
Which, with the trailer that truly confuses me.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait because I love Paul Thomas Anderson, but I also watched that trailer play in a theater
What's
and
it
no one
about?
knew what to make of it. Hopefully, eventually they'll tell people. But so I don't know. I never underestimate Hollywood's ability to learn the wrong lesson. And I think that, yes, I would love to think that they're learning something from Sinners. I think what they're learning from is Minecraft. And if there's any threat to Marvel's dominance, it is the fact that like the gold
Toy
rush,
IP.
the gold rush of creating IP from
Video games.
from video games becomes the dominant thing instead of comic
Oh,
books.
so we're not moving to new IP. We're just changing our existing
Yes.
IP paradigm from comic book IP to video game IP.
Because it feels like, no pun intended, a lot of the big comic book IP is mined. But a lot of the big video game IP isn't. We have a Legend of Zelda movie in development. It's almost crazy that we've never had one before.
And when you think about it, video games are a bigger industry than comic books.
and in the movies.
Right?
this
And the
100%.
movies, right? So
100%.
why wouldn't you go, tap, like, I know it's television, but like The Last of Us, it was like a big video game.
Yes.
And there's a built-in fan base.
Comic
Many
books
more,
don't make billions.
Yeah. Many
Video
more
games do.
people played The Last of Us than read the most recent arc of the X-Men.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. And X-Men, I mean, for Marvel, I feel like that's one thing they could have to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also probably one of their last things. Like they're like this is the biggest thing they can offer is because I don't think any existing in the MCU any existing characters were as big as a team as the X-Men.
Yeah.
Listen,
So
I
you
wore
have-
the Wolverine mask.
Yeah.
I know.
Right?
Yeah. But like, Mario, Zelda, Minecraft, if they could ever entice
The Lego movies.
Yeah, the Lego movies.
Which I liked.
But like, like we haven't seen a Grand Theft Auto movie. There's so much that can be mined. Hey, if Zelda is a big hit and then you make like a Metroid movie, you could do Super Smash Brothers and then you've got your own little Avengers
Right?
situation.
Crossovers.
Like there's so much more to be mined from video games. So I do think Marvel is here to stay. Comic book movies are here to stay. But if
IP
there's
is
any
still
threat, it's a more dominant IP emerging.
I was hoping y'all would tell me that the success of Sinners means that Hollywood is finally ready to toss off the shackles of stifling existing IP and move into a world in which new ideas are rewarded and cinema becomes high art again.
I want to point to Barbie. Like Barbie is, I don't want to say it, but is the best we can expect right now, where you find an IP but find a way to get your art or vision through it still.
Yeah.
Because no one is greenlighting things that aren't IP.
Yeah.
Unless you're
Ryan Coogler.
Ryan Coogler. But he has enough, right? Like
He's
how
got
many
a
Ryan
track
Cooglers are
record.
out there? How many?
Yeah.
No one gets to have that track record anymore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem.
There's just
Yeah.
a handful of people like that right now. And those are the people who can get incredible, original, sometimes well-budgeted films made, but it's a handful.
Yeah.
And they're not going to take those chances on other young filmmakers just because of Sinners.
Yeah.
Those people are going to have to emerge in other ways.
Well, and also Coogler paid his due in IP. He did the Creed movies and
Yeah.
Black Panther.
Yeah.
So he was in that world too. I feel like, how have we made it 47 minutes into a Marvel conversation without mentioning DC? Do we have to talk about DC in all of this and what that means for the future of Marvel?
Well, DC, I mean, they're going through their own reboot, reinvention right now.
Yeah. With the
Super-
former Marvel director, right?
Yes, James Gunn, who directed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, is now overseeing the DC project in a sort of similar way as Kevin Feige at Marvel, and wrote and directed Superman, which is coming out this summer. I'm very curious
Who's the
about it.
Superman?
It's this guy, David Cornsweet.
Corn Sweat?
Cornsweet.
Oh.
He looks like Superman.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Rachel Brosnahan from Ms.
Love
Maisel
her.
is Lois Lane.
All right.
So I'm definitely curious about it. I think what they're hoping to do is something obviously very much akin to the MCU, which the DC has tried before with Zack Snyder and these somewhat darker takes on those characters. I think what James Gunn wants is something that's a little bit more upbeat and offbeat. Whether people are eager to have these sort of two parallel tracks of comic book
I'm not.
universes that they have to keep
I'm
track
not.
of is not necessarily. I'm not convinced. But one thing that James Gunn has said, which I think is very interesting, is that though these projects will all be interconnected, he's not going to rush a movie into production until the screenplay is ready. So he's not
sure.
Well, I don't know. Let's find out because, he's worked in the Marvel mill. He knows that when there's a release date that's made and the expectation that this movie has to come out because it's setting up this next movie, then sometimes things get pushed into place when they're not ready. And so he wants these movies to all be interconnected, but there isn't that sense of we have to go. at least according to him, until the script is airtight. And
And
you don't often find that in big budget filmmaking.
Yeah.
And to James Gunn's credit, he's one of the few filmmakers where you watch a Guardians or a Suicide Squad, and
I
you're
like
like, it
those.
still feels like a James Gunn movie.
Yeah.
And maybe DC will be a place because he has that experience where filmmakers can go and make a movie that still feels like one of their movies. It's hard to say because we're fresh in the beginning right now.
Yeah.
But they do what DC has that maybe the MCU doesn't is I feel like a lot of the DC characters are bigger, right? Like a lot more people know
Which
Superman.
characters?
Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are
Oh,
like,
yeah.
right? Those are the big
Yeah.
they have
They're
the
big.
they have the biggest
They're no Wolverine, but
yeah.
they're big.
They have the biggest and they're big solo. Like they're they don't have to team up. They try the team up. I personally would say their team up did not work that well. I don't know. So it'll be curious to see if Marvel and DC can be good at the same time.
Yeah.
But there's a lesson in that too, because the MCU was built on the backs of characters that were definitely not as big as Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Iron Man, Thor. These characters didn't have that same cultural cachet, but people went to go see those movies because they were good. They were like, here's a movie that's good. And I think that people will still see a Marvel or a DC movie if it's good. It's just not as obligatory. It's not as automatic anymore.
Y'all mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy. Now I'm thinking, was it Guardians 2 where they give you all the backstory on the raccoon?
Guardians 3.
Three.
Guardians 3.
Yeah.
Wow. I was crying in the club, aka movie theater. That was really special.
It was, and
Not a
like,
question here, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I think Tracy hit on something here, which is like James Gunn knows how to make a movie in that format that feels extremely specific and auteur driven and is totally governed by his sentimental and irreverent sensibilities, like all kind of like coming into play and making a $200 million movie that actually feels like tailored to what he wants to say. And I think that a lot of the filmmakers who come in and make Marvel movies have never made a movie of this scale before, don't necessarily speak this in the language of this property, and are frequently told, don't worry about the action, we have people who will do that for you. Just worry about like the character, the acting beats, and whatever. And I think James Gunn is extremely thorough. It all comes from his head, and the best Marvel filmmakers or the best filmmakers who operate in this genre know how to make the whole thing feel like them and don't just kind of come in as a gun for hire.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. I want to pivot to another movie topic that I've been keeping my eyes on this week. But to close the Marvel loop in this conversation, I want you both to put on your historian hats. Flash forward 30 or 40 years. You're both teaching history of film at whatever university you choose. For your segment or chapter or class on the legacy of Marvel on Hollywood, what is this thesis statement for that course?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe, despite having cinema in its name, was the start of the TVification of movies.
Explain that in 2 more sentences.
Films, right? The Marvel films, like Marvel comic books, it's serialized storytelling. They're not, very few of them are standalones. Most of the Marvel standalone movies are just because they didn't do that well. They're like, we won't do a follow-up. They made movie going, appointment movie going because it was interconnected.
Connections.
And that was the strength. Like in the beginning, that's the strength. You're like, there's payoff. I want to know the next part of the story. I like knowing the jokes. But you keep building that, and it makes it less special.
Okay.
And then it becomes, when it starts feeling like television, why wouldn't you just watch it on television?
Whew. I would take that class. I like that. Same question to you.
No, I'm copying a little bit of that syllabus because I think you also hit on something, which is, yes. Like the Marvel movies were making incredible money. They were keeping theaters alive, et cetera. But at the same time, as TV was becoming a much more dominant medium than movies, like as that paradigm shifted, Marvel was giving you something serialized that felt like TV, where it felt like appointment viewing. You had to watch it that week, otherwise you'd be spoiled on like where things were going. So I do think that they just perfected that TV movie hybrid, and then when they started making actual TV, like the formula was way too top heavy with TV feeling, and it felt less special, less movie like. So it'd be something like that, or maybe the thesis would be that that Jean Grey is the best X-Men character because she's the most powerful and all the hot boys like her.
So
Something
you want
like
a course just on Jean Grey?
Let's do it.
Right.
Okay.
Or I
And
mean,
you can
if
wear
we're-
your Wolverine mask.
If we're looking
Hey.
to the future, maybe my thesis will be how the X-Men saved the MCU. We don't know. It might.
Okay. All right. Sign me up for both courses. Thank y'all for this chat and not making me look too stupid, because I know some Marvel, but not all Marvel.
Well, you came in with the hat, so you did
Yeah.
a good job on it.
I did. All right. I think we're there. I have this urge to like close out the episode in my Wolverine mask, but
Please
it makes
put it
my
back
head
on.
sweat. So
No,
I
I
don't
loved
know.
it.
How about y'all sign the beach ball while I put on the mask again, and then we'll take selfies with my mask on. Tell our listeners and viewers where to find you before we hang it up.
You can find me at the New York Times. I have a column called The Projectionist. I'll be covering the Cannes Film Festival through most of May, so check that out. I am on Twitter and Blue Sky more reluctantly these days than ever, but under Kyle Buchanan on both.
Okay.
I'm at the LA Times. That's where you're gonna most reliably find me. I took a social media break.
Good for you.
So, like, my Twitter account still exists. I made a Blue Sky account, so it's there. It's at Tracy C. Brown, but I don't really use them right now. And it's actually felt very like liberating.
You're free. Stay free.
I feel like really,
Don't come
really
back
good
to
about it.
Yeah. So
but
if they want to
sometimes-
read you, subscribe to the LA Times and pay for it.
Please do.
Okay. You got to sign the beach ball. Our guest signed the beach ball. There's a Sharpie right there.
Here I go.
You can find me here, listeners, viewers, and if you happen to see Wolverine, send him my way. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.